Hi, and welcome to the second session in our series, Jesus, God with Us, where we're looking at the book of Matthew. In the last session, we talked about how the book of Matthew is this historic book. It's been passed on carefully to us, and it's a real privilege, I believe, for us to be even reading this book. Whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, I think you'll find that this historical account is a significant book in our world history. Much like the whole Bible, it has shaped our society today. We're about to go into, I'm hoping you've actually done the homework and you have read through probably the largest chunk of the Gospel of Matthew, right? Today we're looking at Jesus goes public. So we're looking at his public ministry and the things that he says out in public. But we're going through Matthew chapter 4, verse 17, all the way through to chapter 16, verse 20. And I know that's a lot to read and a bunch to discuss today, but I'm hoping you've done your homework. Our key verse for today is Matthew 7, 28 to 29. And it goes like this. And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. So Jesus, he's introduced in session 1 as God who is with us. And now he is introducing his kingdom. What happens when Jesus is in charge, right? What is the world like? As God made it, as God intended it, right? And so he's teaching as one who has authority. In this section, Jesus brings the kingdom of God into people's lives. So he is going out in public and he is healing the leper. He is helping the centurion servant. He's healing sick mothers. He's calming stormy seas. He's healing a demonized man, the paralyzed man, reviving a dead girl, 2 blind men, a mute man. And he's going around performing miracles in people's lives as a real life testimony, I guess, of what the kingdom of God does when it bursts into earth. But what you see through this series of passages is that there are many different responses to the kingdom of God. So as Jesus articulates and shows what his kingdom is like, people react to it differently. Firstly, there's the positive response, and that is of the masses. The everyday person who encounters Jesus broadly has a positive impact. They're healed, they're comforted, they meet Jesus who is gracious to them. Then there's the neutral response. So these responses could mirror our very own responses. We could be positive to the gospel, we could be positive to the kingdom of God, but the second one is that we could be neutral, right? So in chapter 11 of the book of Matthew, you get John the Baptist, and he writes to the disciples and Jesus saying, hello, could you tell me, are you actually the Messiah, or should we be expecting another one to come? He's not really sure. He's kind of neutral. He wants to find out. And maybe that's you, right? Your response to the kingdom right now could be, hey, I don't know if this is really it, right? Then there was the negative response. And that was the Pharisees, the religious of the day. And they were against Jesus. They saw the kingdom and they didn't like it. It was against their system. It was against their way of doing things. And so it rubbed them all the wrong way. This is what we saw when Jesus finally revealed his public ministry. People reacted in all different ways. And if you read through the book of Matthew, through these passages, you'll get a glimpse of their responses. Jesus then goes out and he talks. He does his 3 very famous discourses, right? There's 5 discourses in the book of Matthew. 3 of them are in this series of passages, right? The first one is the Sermon on the Mount, found in chapters 5 to 7. Then the second one is found in chapter 10, and it is talking about the mission of the disciples. And then the third one is in chapter 13, which is Jesus telling parables. And all 3 of them are Jesus communicating publicly what the kingdom of God is like? This is what I'm about. This is what I would do. This whole session is going to ask the question, what? Well, the session 1 was about who. Session 2 is about what. And we look at what would God himself do if he were here on earth. I know it'll take a bit of time, but could you, in today's session, unpack, take a close look at the things that Jesus did and said in his public ministry, and then have a discussion and reflect, what would your response be to God's kingdom? What would your response be to Jesus and the things that he would do and say here on earth? Would you be positive, neutral, or negative? God bless.